Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Kansas City-based jazz trumpeter and bandleader E.E. Pointer of the great River Cow Orchestra. We caught up with the leader of this cutting-edge Kansas City jazz group to talk about some of their latest recordings, like 2019 CD, The Intergalactic Love Men, and he opens up about others, including new ones that have come out and will come out, along with other recent activity for this band of 12 musicians led by the great E.E. Pointer. And they are the essence of improv, and one take, and that's it. If you heard it, remember it, because it may not happen again. Always honing collective improvisation, similar to the New Orleans Jazz Parades, paying attention to how each band member interacts with the group as a whole, essentially celebrating music of the moment. That is the River Cow Orchestra. So please, dig this interview and learn a little bit about this band.
Thank you for taking a minute out to talk to me about River Cow, about your life, what's been going on. It's been like 4 years now, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've sat down to chit-chat.
You kind of slipped one under the radar. I saw you live at the Westport Coffee House about a month ago, and you have a new album that just came out, and what I like to do is talk about that, and that is Intergalactic Love Men. So give me an idea about what this album is all about.
It's interesting because, our group is a collective, and we've got 12 different musicians that we interchange all the time. And it keeps us on our toes, and so we very seldom have all 12 of us in the studio at the same time. So when we're in the studio recording, although it's just like a performance for us, Dwayne is really good at Weights and Measures Studio. Dwayne's just wonderful at setting us up and getting what we want in a recording. But anyway, we never name anything. We just go in and have a session. And then after we sit down and we listen to it, we sort of pool our thoughts, and sure enough, something comes from it. And this one actually is our next to last album that just came out. We dropped another one yesterday, and it's up on YouTube and CD Baby and all that. It's called Serious Tools. But you don't want to talk about that one right now. You want to talk about Intergalactic Love Men. So I can just say that it was so much fun to do, but there are some strange things on it. And it's, we just sort of go when we play. It's some of it's like stream of consciousness. Not only do we do free improvisation, but we're actually doing free composition. It's just not the solos that are improvised. It's the form, the keys, the balances, the blends, the tempo, everything is just sort of thrown up in the air to see what happens. And I think in keeping with old school way of approaching, improvisation of all nature, that's, improvisation goes all the way back to before Bach, It's just that we do a little bit of different stuff as we're doing it. I don't know. It's interesting. Each one of us prepares differently for that experience. I know I can't speak to Joe how all the other guys prepare. I listen to a lot of things, and sometimes I watch movies, and I think when we recorded that, I had just watched a bunch of science fiction movies, and that's why that intergalactic thing was on my mind a bit. So you just listen to a lot of things. I know, let's see, today, or over the past week, I jotted down this week knowing that I was going to speak with you, I jotted down some of the different things I listened to, and I don't really think it's different than anybody else. It's just that it's a real wide arrangement of things. I've listened to Mahler's Third Symphony. I followed that with Maceo Parker. I listened to Steve Gadd and the old group that he used to be in called Stuff with Eric Gale and Richard T. and those guys. I listened to a bunch of Chris Steele on Live from Here, the old Prairie Home Companion show. I listened to that guy a lot. So, I just get all kinds of ideas from all kinds of things, and,
Yeah, I think it does. And I think the one thing, too, that is, and we've talked about this a little bit, too, is that I didn't realize you had a new album, and I guess that's kind of a part of the process, is that you guys have released a lot of albums over the years. So my question to you is this. What's your philosophy on length of time, material? What are you looking at with each successive release? Is it improv in much the same way as the way you make the album?
Yeah. It's an extension of our performances, basically. I mean, when we go out and do a performance, once in a while we'll get an idea, and it's sort of funny because sometimes people will say, "Hey, can you play this song off that album?" And we have to say, "No, we can't do that," because we just sort of do it as we go. Now, we might take some ideas off something and do another version of that, but as far as doing something exact, that doesn't happen. It's length of, I don't like to go over, knowing what people's attention spans are today. I don't like for our teams to go over 6 or 7 minutes, maybe 1 or 2 on an album, maybe. Other than that, I would rather play them on the shorter side. But it just depends on who's playing and whether it's in a groove or whether it's working or whether it's not working. And then, I'm sure on all of our CDs that we put out, I think we're at number 20. This last one is number 20. There's going to be some that miss, that don't come off the way we wanted them to. But we've also left probably enough for another 2 or 3 CDs on the cutting room floor, So we try to pick tunes that are out there a little bit and not the kind of stuff that people are hearing every day,
Yeah.
Because we don't have to play that stuff, and it's not a rip on it. I just, I like to play stuff that we make up, and a lot of times it's pretty cool,
Yeah, without a doubt. The one thing we've talked about, too, is that you've been relatively busy lately. For instance, tonight, May 23rd, you're going to play at the Westport Coffee House again, and I was fortunate enough to catch you guys about a month ago. So talk to me a little bit about how you feel about live performance, how you feel about your schedule and how busy things are.
Actually, we played a whole bunch in the last year. I am getting a little older, a little long in the tooth. Some of the other people in the cows. And it's, schlepping equipment in and out and upstairs and downstairs and things like that. That gets a little old, and I'm not bugged by it, but, this is sort of like my third act, and I'm enjoying it. I love doing it. When we do play live, once we get set up, and I think I just found out who else is playing tonight, so that sort of helps guide me in how I'm going to think about things. And I love playing on Thursday nights because I don't have to fight the Friday night traffic because, I drive in from Lexington every time we play. And it's not that it's that far. I mean, it's far enough, but sometimes on a Friday evening, it's a little crazy getting somewhere. But no, I still love it, man. I wouldn't be doing it, In the extreme seasons like the dead of the summer when it's really, really hot, we don't take every gig because, you know, if it's outside in the sun or something like that, my gosh, you know, we've all got health problems, you know, and which I'm not going to get into. Sitting out in the sun is not what guys our age want to do. If we have a choice, you know.
Sure.
But in the wintertime, it's just, you know, sometimes it's a little difficult. But I don't want to make it sound like I'm complaining. I love the gigs. I love to go out and play and be a part of one of the most unique groups in Kansas City. And that's always, I feel really lucky to be a part of that.
So if somebody out there is listening to this interview and listening to Neon Jazz, and they want to get a good slice of Kansas City jazz musicians that are out there today, and you're on that list, how would you sell your CDs and your sound and convince somebody they need to pick you guys up and listen to what you're doing?
Well, I would say it's going to be something that you never heard before, for sure. And we combine, in essence, we combine jazz and blues and rock and funk and ballads, and, you know, we combine so many different things on the fly that if someone wants a really true improvisation experience and not just hear, there are so many great musicians in Kansas City, but you're not going to hear us play a bunch of, you know, pre-selected note groupings over chord changes. That's not going to happen. I mean, you'll hear a lot of melodic content. You'll hear somebody play a solo and then blend right into a texture of a piece. It's just a melding of musics. And sometimes we work in, you know, Middle Eastern sounds. You know, it's just, it's a wonderful thing to go to a gig and not know what to expect. You know, for years I played gigs. For years I played gigs, and I knew that I was going to play a whole bunch of notes that were written out, and I might have between 4 and 5 minutes of improvisation to do over chord changes. We have a melding of musics, and his newest thing has all kinds of things that are just fused together. It's true fusion of music. And I think one of the hang-ups that people have, I'm not really judging here, but I still feel sometimes people like to put all music in a category. Let's leave it there in that category. It belongs in this cubbyhole. It belongs in that pigeonhole. In our music, you can't do that. You know, sometimes it depends on what cut you're listening to. Sometimes it depends on what night you're listening to us out there in KC, or it depends on, you know, where we're playing. We play different when we play for a cancer benefit than we do if we're playing at a wedding or if we're playing at the Westport Coffee House. You know, everything's a little changes up. But the underlying thing, Joe, is that we're always improvising. Everything is improvised. I know once in a while, folks stumble through, you know, when we're playing, when we take a break, and I know what they're looking for. They're looking for charts. You know, and they're not going to find them. You know, they never, they might find a notebook full of, you know, little things that each one of us jot down and we might put into a poem or a reading or something of that nature. But, you know, I think the band is still unique in that its ability to blend music and the spoken word and visuals and things like that, and all the different styles of music we cover is, like I said, it's just unique. in the area. And I thank the guys in the group for that. You know, we've got some fantastic people, and I'm really lucky to be a part of that.
Absolutely, I agree. And that's the thing that I always am reminded of every time I see you live and I hear your music. So, E, thank you for taking some time out today to talk to me about what's been going on, about the new albums. I'm going to point everybody and links on this interview so that they can pick up your music. You'll be at the Westport Coffee House on May 23rd. You're always around Kansas City. Thank you for what you do for jazz locally, and thank you for pushing the envelope. I always appreciate it.
Joe, thanks you, and thanks to Neon Jazz for all that you do. And I want to shout out to all my fellow cows out there.
Please do.
Yeah, well, a big shout out to Brent Bowman. He's our keys and loops and samples. Connor Bowman, his son, on flute. Mike LaGrega on synthesizers and violin. Greg Field, our poet and our percussion and vocalist. Joe Shields on percussion and Scott Bosworth on percussion. And we got 3 bass players we call on: Grant Harse, Ryan Jones, and Kristina Ning. And our 2 guitar players, Issaku Yamaashi and George Boje. So thanks to all those guys and gals. I might mention, I think I already did mention, we just had a new CD drop in the last couple of days called Serious Tools, and it's up on YouTube. You can hear the cuts on there, and I might even send you a new one. It's called Parlez-vous and Putts. So
I like it.
Enjoy. Okay, buddy.
Cool, man.
Listen, thanks a lot. Bless you, and you have a safe journey today.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest jazz cats in Kansas City and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to the great E.E. Pointer, as always, for the music, his cool, and his stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.